And Andrew Cuomo of New York, mentioned as a future Democratic presidential pick, is facing allegations he meddled with an independent commission charged with cleaning up Albany. One of the commission's co-chairs stood up for Cuomo, saying the governor didn't interfere.
What does the chairman's actions show? No. Resoundingly no. The rejection is ipso facto a statement of independence because he said no.
Thank God Casey got back going.
Okay, let's bring in reporter for ProPublica. Now, we have to say his name right. Yeah. Theodoric?
It's Theodoric, yeah.
Yes, that's very good.
Awesome. A good Southern name.
Theo Meyer, also with us from Capital New York, Blake Seff. He served as presidential campaign aide to Barack Obama, a former top aide to New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman before entering journalism.
So Theo, I picked this up on ProPublica's app this weekend, a fascinating story that you broke. So tell us about it. They're wiping out New York State emails in, what, 3 months? What's going on?
So the administration has adopted this policy, and there's really two parts to it. One, emails are being deleted starting last year after 90 days automatically, unless state employees, sort of specifically save them.
Right.
And two, the guidelines for what has to be specifically saved are not nearly as expansive as all the other states that I talked with.
What's the justification? 3 months? I mean, my inbox is filled with things I haven't opened in 3 months.
Well, it's actually a little bit unclear. We obtained a memo through a Freedom of Information request that sort of outlined why they were doing it, and they said it was to improve email management in parts. But strangely, the policy was also adopted at the same time that they moved to sort of a new email system that featured cloud storage, in which each email user has 50 gigabytes of storage.
So you can just store stuff forever.
50 gigabytes is enough to store hundreds of thousands or even millions of emails.
So this isn't like the federal government that's claiming, well, we've got like tape from like 1978. We stored all this on 8-track tapes. I mean, they've got cloud technology, so 50 gigabytes. I mean, that holds a hell of a lot of emails.
It's a lot.
Any justification at all from the governor's office for wiping these emails out in 3 months?
Said about improving email management, and the sort of independent experts that I've talked to, people who design these sorts of policies for other government agencies, have said this is not a good idea. This is not enough time to save your emails.
I'm curious as to when, by the way, other states have policies that go a little bit longer than 3 months. Connecticut, it's 2 years. Washington State, 4 years. In Florida, it's 3 years. So those routine emails were at least kept for a longer period of time. When was this decision made?
So some state agencies seem to have been doing this going back to, maybe even before the Cuomo administration. But there was a memo sort of standardizing it for all state agencies that came out last year. I think it was last June or July.
Interesting.
Blake, Andrew Cuomo, like everybody else, promises to be transparent. When he gets into office, it seems to be actually him doing just the exact opposite.
Yeah, this falls right into the pattern with what you guys were talking about with the Moreland Commission, right? He comes out and says, I'm going to have an independent commission. They can look at anybody. I'm going to go after the bad actors. The politicians in Albany aren't going to like it. And then it turns out, well, it wasn't so independent. Now with this thing that Theo just brought to light, says I'm going to be the most transparent governor ever. I'm going to be the one to reform Albany. It turns out that they're have this new email deletion policy. It's a little bit of a pattern here.
Is it connected directly to him, this decision?
Well, he's known for micromanaging every little aspect of his operation, and that could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
But in this case, it's hard to imagine that there are major policies that are happening without his permission.
It's unbelievable. Mark Halpern.
Cuomo was in Israel. He's now back. What's your sense of where the Moreland investigation is going in terms of the federal prosecutor?
Yeah, so for people who are watching this on the national level, there are basically 2 phases to this investigation. The first is what you might call the underlying allegation, which is, as we discussed, sort of meddling into the commission, which was when they had subpoenas that got a little bit too close to the governor's associates. The allegation is that aide said pull it back. The second phase of this, though, is, as we just saw with the ipso facto comment, after the investigation was announced by the federal prosecutor, there were statements that came out by commissioners that said, oh, there wasn't any interference. Well, the federal prosecutor, Preet Bharara, has said that he's interested in looking into how those statements by commissioners came out, and did the Cuomo administration influence those? If they did, the sense that I'm getting from people who are very knowledgeable about this investigation is that that may be the easier, more cleaner jurisdiction for the federal prosecutor in terms of a witness tampering charge.
All right. Blake Zeff, Theo Meyer, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
For being on the show. Keep us up to date. Still ahead.
Now let's get important. This is why we have Ari here.
Justin Bieber, Kevin Spacey, and Bill Gates. Somehow they all made it in today's Hollyweird. Really? We'll be right back.